Hi, I'm Paul Goodwin and I live in Dalry. Some of you may know me because I worked in the Glenkens schools looking after the computers until I retired in 2018. There are many types of writing. For example, I write letters, reports, technical manuals, poetry, magazine articles on anything from air crashes to gardening, and memoir. That's things that happened in my lifetime. But today I'm only going to talk about creative fiction. That is stories that you make up, but parts of them can be true. First, a few words that you might not know. Flash fiction. The term flash fiction is used to describe a very short story, probably less than about 500 words. Protagonist. This might be the hero of the story, but importantly, it is the person whose viewpoint the story is. If you like, who you are pretending to be in the story you are reading. Protagonist. Genre. This is the type of story. It could be a love story or science fiction or a whodunit or an adventure story. Incidentally, if you write a science fiction story, it's best to invent only one thing without describing how it works. For example, a time machine, or faster than light travel, or an invisibility cloak. But stick to just one thing. Everything else should be real. This makes the best stories. None of these things I'm going to tell you are rules. They are guidelines. So feel free to ignore or break as many as you like. But if you stick to as many as you can, your stories will usually be better. Who is your protagonist? Your hero of your story? You only know their thoughts. You can't see inside everyone else's head. So if you do have thoughts in your story, they should only be the protagonist's thoughts. Now, two important guidelines. Show, don't tell. And start right in the action, not the beginning. Start somewhere lively. Get the reader interested from the first sentence. You can always go back later in your writing to explain any background stuff. For example, if you really wanted to begin your story with "Grandad came round to fix the cupboard and cut his hand with a screwdriver," you could instead begin, "Horse brasses," came a shout from the kitchen. It was one of Grandad's made-up swear words. Jenny ran to see Grandad wrapping a tea towel round his hand. There was a screwdriver next to the broken door and drops of blood on the floor. Now, doesn't that want to make you read on? You might hear writers talking about a story arc and how it changed people. You can think of it as beginning, middle and end, but I think of it as a problem, progress and a solution. Who is your reader? Here's one I wrote for a 7-year-old called The Bike Ride, but actually I really wrote it for myself, telling a story to a 7-year-old granddaughter. Grandad and Lucy were riding their bikes along the country lane. They both wore safety helmets and bright yellow jackets. She pedalled quickly with her small wheels, and he more slowly with his grown-up wheels. The sun was beginning to set, and they were going to be a little bit late for tea. Granny knew this. They were always late for tea when they went off on their adventures. There were so many important things to do, like playing poo sticks, eating the chocolate biscuits from Grandad's rucksack, and trying to count the rabbits in the field, and there was never enough time. In the road ahead they could see the flashing blue lights of a police car, but as they got nearer the lights went out and the car drove away. When they got to the place where the car had been, they saw it, a big, black, dangerous thing sitting in the road. They both knew what it was. Grandad told Lucy to phone Grandma and say that they would be even later than usual because they had something important to do, but she wasn't to say what it was. Lucy had her own phone since her last birthday. Meanwhile, he phoned 999 on his old-fashioned Grandad phone. After the phone calls, they waited. She asked if they could just move it, but he thought that wouldn't be a good idea. They should just stand guard and wait until someone comes to help. After not very long, 2 police cars came, quite fast, with sirens, blue flashing lights and everything. Lucy and Grandad stood still and pointed to the black dangerous thing. One policeman with lots of shiny silver on his uniform came forward and asked if they had touched it. They hadn't. He went over and picked up the gun. Then he opened it and took the bullets out. He handed it to one of the other policemen, who put it safely in the boot of the car. The policeman with the shiny silver on his uniform thanked them very much and said that the policeman who dropped it would be in a bit of trouble, but they weren't. Except with Granny, of course, for being late. But they had the best excuse ever. Now there you can see the story arc, the problem, the solution, how we get from one to the other. But it did start straight in the action, more or less, because they were going along the road. So bear that in mind. You know who the protagonist was. That was little Lucy. But you also know that it was written for a younger child, a 7-year-old. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again sometime in the future with some other thoughts on creative writing. Thank you. Bye.